deathbed, not as a young convert, not at the height of his power, not before the Council of Nicaea, where he shaped Christian doctrine. On his deathbed, after 30 years of ruling, as the self-declared champion of the faith, and the bishop who baptized him, held views that the church had officially declared heresy. This is the story of Constantine the Great, and the question nobody fully answers. By the end of this, you are going to know 3 things about Constantine that almost nobody tells you. First, what he actually saw at the Milvian Bridge. Not the Sunday school version, but the 3 different accounts that don't agree with each other. Second, what he did after his so-called conversion that makes the conversion impossible to take at face value. And third, the thing he did to his own family that the church spent centuries trying to explain away. Stay with me. This one changes everything you thought you knew. Let's start with the world. Constantine was born into. The year is approximately 272 AD. The Roman Empire is in crisis. In the 50 years before Constantine's birth, Rome had at least 26 men claim the title of emperor. Most of them died violently. The empire was fracturing. External pressure from Germanic tribes in the north, from Persia in the east, and constant internal civil war. Christianity in this world is a minority religion, under active persecution. The Emperor Diocletian, Constantine's predecessor, had launched the most systematic persecution of Christians in Roman history just years before, burning scriptures, destroying churches, executing priests. Into this world, Constantine is born to a Roman general named Constantius and a woman named Helena. Helena is one of the most interesting people in this entire story. She was, by most accounts, not from a noble family. Some sources call her an innkeeper's daughter. Some say she was Constantius's concubine, rather than his legal wife. But she was his son's mother, and she would later become one of the most significant figures in early Christian history. Constantine grew up in the imperial court, trained as a soldier and a politician. He watched his father navigate the brutal machinery of Roman power. He learned, early and well, that survival required pragmatism, that allegiances shifted, that the right move at the right moment was worth more than any conviction. Keep that in mind. Everything that follows needs to be read through that lens. Before we get to the conversion, I need to tell you something that most retellings of Constantine's story mention briefly and then move past. In 326 AD, 13 years after he became the champion of Christianity, Constantine executed his eldest son Crispus. Crispus was a successful military commander, popular with the troops, a legitimate heir. The official reason was never stated publicly. Ancient sources suggest his stepmother Fausta, Constantine's wife, accused him of something. Crispus was executed. Within weeks, Constantine executed Fausta, his wife, the mother of his other children. The method: she was suffocated in an overheated bath. The champion of Christian values, the man who had just finished building churches across the empire, executed his son and wife within weeks of each other. Sources record that his mother Helena was horrified by Crispus's death. Some historians think her pilgrimage to Jerusalem, where she claimed to find the true cross, was partly Constantine's attempt to appease his mother after what he had done. I'm not asking you to judge him. I'm asking you to hold this alongside everything else we're about to discuss. October 28th, 312 AD. The Battle of the Milvian Bridge. The moment everything supposedly changed. Constantine is marching on Rome to face his rival Maxentius for control of the Western Empire. The night before the battle, something happens. What exactly? This is where it gets complicated. We have 3 accounts that don't agree. Account 1, from Lactantius, a Christian writer close to the court. He writes that Constantine had a dream, a divine command to mark his soldiers' shields with the Christian symbol. He did, and he won. Account 2, from Eusebius of Caesarea, a bishop and historian. He interviewed Constantine personally decades later and wrote that he saw a vision in the sky, a cross of light above the sun, with the words, "By this, conquer." They say the whole army saw it. Account 3, also from Eusebius, but in a different book. No cross in the sky, just a dream of Christ. 3 accounts, 2 from the same writer that contradict each other, one of which was written 30 years after the event. I'm not saying the vision didn't happen. I'm noting that the evidence is complicated, and that everyone who recorded it had significant reasons to tell the story in a particular way. What we know happened. Constantine won the battle. Maxentius drowned in the Tiber. Constantine entered Rome as sole ruler of the West. And almost immediately, he started doing things that looked like religious policy. The Edict of Milan, 313 AD, official tolerance of Christianity throughout the empire. Persecution ended. Churches returned. Property restored. This is real. This is enormous. Millions of Christians suddenly became protected. But what remains uncertain is what was in his heart when he made it. Here is the fact that gets buried in most textbooks. In the years after the battle, after the edict, after he started building churches, Constantine continued to mint coins, featuring Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, a pagan deity, not just any deity, the one Constantine had claimed as his divine patron before the vision, the one his father had honored, and the one the Roman army revered. These coins weren't minted in secret. They were official imperial currency, bearing the emperor's image on one side and a sun god on the other. The man who just declared himself the champion of the Christian god was still minting coins with a pagan god for years. His final coins with the sun appear as late as 325 AD, the year of the Council of Nicaea. 325 AD, Constantine calls together bishops from across the Christian world, 300 or more. They gather in Nicaea, modern-day Turkey, at the emperor's invitation. The issue? A theological dispute that was tearing the church apart. A priest named Arius had been teaching that Jesus, while divine, was created by God the Father, and therefore not co-equal with God, not fully God, a subordinate divine being. The opposition insisted that Jesus was fully God, of the same substance as the Father, eternal and uncreated. This sounds like a philosophical dispute, but at this point, it was a political crisis threatening to split the church and, by extension, the empire. Constantine did not fully understand the theological question. This is documented. His letter to Arius describes the argument as extremely trivial and unworthy of so much controversy. He thought they were arguing about minor things. He wanted unity. He did not particularly care which side was theologically correct. He just wanted them to agree. The council produced the Nicene Creed, the foundational statement still recited in churches today. Arius and his followers were condemned. Constantine enforced the decision, not out of theological conviction, but out of political necessity. The creed that defines Christian orthodoxy was produced at a council called by a man who thought the whole argument was trivial. Here is the detail that stops most people. Throughout his entire reign, after the battles, the edicts, and the councils, Constantine retained the title Pontifex Maximus. Do you know what that means? It means high priest of the Roman state religion, the pagan religion. He was responsible for the pagan calendar, sacred rites, the relationship between Rome and its traditional gods. Constantine kept this title until he died. The man who summoned the Council of Nicaea remained the chief priest of Roman paganism for the rest of his life. Let's go deeper into the story of Crispus and Fausta, because this is the moment that defined everything. Crispus was Constantine's son by his first companion, Minervina. He was the eldest. He served brilliantly in battle. He was popular, capable, the obvious heir. In 326 AD, Crispus was executed on his father's order. No trial recorded, no public accusation, no stated reason. The historian Zosimus writes that Fausta, Constantine's wife, accused Crispus of attempting to seduce her. It's a story that echoes the biblical tale of Joseph in Egypt. The powerful woman, the stepson, the accusation, and the sudden fall. Was it true? We cannot know. But what happened next is even harder to explain. Helena, Constantine's mother, confronted her son and directly blamed him for his grandson's death. She loved Crispus. Within weeks, Fausta was dead, suffocated in boiling water on Constantine's order. The emperor who built churches, the emperor who called himself the servant of God, executed his firstborn son on his wife's accusation, then executed his wife, possibly because his mother told him he'd been wrong. No Christian writer of the period offers a defense of these actions. They mostly just don't mention them. Eusebius, Constantine's biographer, does not include them at all. The silence in the sources is louder than any explanation. In 330 AD, Constantine did something no Roman emperor had done. He moved the capital, not to another existing city. He built a new one, on the site of an old Greek city called Byzantium. He called it Constantinople. His city, Rome, the city that had been the center of the world for 1,000 years, was no longer the capital. Why? The official answer is strategy. Constantinople was easier to defend, better positioned for trade. All of that is true, but there is another answer. Rome was full of the old families, the old Senate, the old religion, the old ways. Rome looked at Constantine and saw a man who had broken all the rules, who had murdered family members, who was promoting a foreign religion. Constantinople was his city, his Senate, his rules, his churches. He didn't convert Rome to his vision. He left Rome and built his vision from scratch. So, was Constantine a Christian? Here are the facts we have. He never received baptism until his deathbed. In the ancient world, this wasn't unusual for politicians. Baptism was understood as a total washing away of sins, so people delayed it, to die with a clean slate. He continued to use pagan titles and imagery throughout his reign. He called the Council of Nicaea without understanding the theological nuances, but at the same time, he built enormous churches. He returned property to the church. He ended the torture of Christians. He issued laws against pagan sacrifice, though he didn't always enforce them. What do you do with that collection of facts? Some historians see a genuine, if complicated faith, a man shaped by his mother, a man who had a genuine experience at the bridge. Other historians see a cold pragmatist, who bet on Christianity as the best tool for managing an empire. Possibly, both are true. Possibly, Constantine himself couldn't have answered the question if you had asked him directly. 337 AD. Constantine is dying. He has been ill for some time. He travels to Nicomedia, modern Turkey, to the healing waters. They don't help. He asks for baptism. The bishop who baptizes him is named Eusebius of Nicomedia, and he was an Arian. An Arian, the very theological position that the Council of Nicaea, the council Constantine himself called, had officially condemned as heresy. The position for which Constantine had exiled people. On his deathbed, the man who shaped Christian orthodoxy at Nicaea was baptized by a man whose views Nicaea had declared heretical. Why? The most likely answer: that bishop was nearby. He was senior. He was available. And perhaps, Constantine was no longer concerned with theological distinctions at the moment of death, which is, in its own way, a very revealing fact. Constantine died on May 22, 337 AD. He was buried in Constantinople, in the Church of the Holy Apostles, which he had built for himself. He had placed 12 symbolic cenotaphs representing the 12 apostles, and his own sarcophagus he placed in the center. He buried himself as the 13th apostle. Think about that for a moment. A man who wasn't baptized until his last day, who minted pagan gods on coins, who executed his son and wife, buried himself as the 13th apostle. But what came after him? The church he empowered became the dominant institution of Western civilization for the next 1,000 years. The Nicene Creed, which he initiated, is still recited by millions every week. The city he built, Constantinople, survived as a Christian capital until 1453. The pragmatic decisions of one man, made for reasons we still debate, built the framework of our civilization. His mother Helena is venerated as a saint. Constantine himself is venerated as a saint in the Eastern Church, equal to the apostles. Here is what I keep coming back to. The question, was Constantine a Christian? Maybe it's the wrong question. Because Christianity as a unified, doctrinally defined, organized institution did not fully exist before Constantine. He didn't convert to a fully formed religion. He helped form it. He gave it political structure, money, protection. Whether he believed it personally, maybe, it doesn't matter as much as what he built. The Nicene Creed, Constantinople, the end of persecution, all of these are real. and they shaped the world you and I live in today. And it was created by a man who minted coins with a sun god, kept the title of pagan priest, executed his family, and was baptized by a heretic 3 days before he died. History is rarely made by people you would call saints. It's made by the people who were there at the right time. One question: the 13th apostle, did he really believe that? Or was it the final political move of a man who never stopped calculating? Drop a comment. Tell me what you think. I read every single one. Subscribe, because next week Marcus finds someone else whom history turned into a simple story, but who was far more complex. Marcus, the silent witness. He was there,